The following content this episode is owned by Best Galaxy Australian Studios. Re-uploading episode for without permission will be strongly prohibited.
News is the finally next on Best Galaxy Australian Breaking News, Tuesday, the 16th of May of 2023.
Good evening, welcome to Best Galaxy Australian Breaking News. For the main news, my name is Galaxy Australian Guy. But we have begin, here's headlines. Refugees are among those receiving support since civil war broke out last month, and officials believe more sexual assault cases are going unreported. Krish Kandia wants same help given to Ukrainians offered to Sudanese families fleeing civil war. Many reported dead in Rwanda and Uganda, as heavy rain also devastates western regions of continent. News 1, there have been multiple reports of civilians being raped by armed men in the Sudanese capital of Khartoum, where fighting broke out last month, say government officials. For women and a girl, 3 of them refugees, are being supported by a specialist unit whose director said she thought most of the sexual violence in the city was going unreported. News 2, Dr. Krish Kandia, the director of the Sanctuary Foundation, which was instrumental in matching many British hosts with Ukrainian refugees, said he wanted the country to show the same generosity of spirit to those fleeing war in Sudan as it did to Ukrainians. Within days of proposing the idea online, more than 100 people have formally registered with the organization as being willing to host Sudanese families escaping the civil war. News 3, May is the end of the rainy season for many parts of East Africa. However, this does not mean the devastation has ended. Last week heavy rainfall, which started in the late afternoon on the 2nd of May, led to flash flooding in parts of Rwanda and Uganda. These heavy downpours continued through to the 4th of May, with further wet weather following later in the week.
News 4, books about the Tiananmen Square massacre, Hong Kong protest movements, and other subjects deemed politically sensitive by Beijing have been removed from the former British colony's public libraries in the lead-up to the 34th anniversary of the killings. Hong Kong media have reported a marked increase in the number of book and documentary removals, which have been growing since the authoritarian clampdown on Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement and the introduction of the national security law in 2020. It has resulted in a significant curtailing of political freedoms in the city and multiple arrests. News 5, New Zealand was in shock on Tuesday after a worst nightmare fire at a hostel in the capital Wellington left at least 6 people dead and 11 others missing. The Loafers Lodge hostel in Newtown, in Wellington South, caught alight just after midnight on Tuesday. By dawn, the top floors of the building were charred black. The US is set to sign strategic pacts with Papua New Guinea and Micronesia next week, as Washington seeks to shore up support among Pacific Island countries to counter competition from China. Papua New Guinea's Prime Minister, James Maip, confirmed that his country's agreements with the US would be signed when Joe Biden becomes the first sitting US president to visit the Pacific nation on the 22nd of May. News 7, more than 100 journalists and editors have signed an open letter calling for the immediate release of Jimmy Lai, a British media mogul detained in Hong Kong on national security charges. Leading global media figures including The Guardian editor-in-chief, Catherine Viner, and Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Ressa called for the charges against Lai and other journalists in Hong Kong to be dropped.
1 year into his stint as Australia's 41st Treasurer might be a bit early to discuss legacies, but Jim Chalmers was asked about what he thought his might be at a lunch in Sydney today. And finally News 9, Mexicans would be eating cat food out of a can and living in a tent behind an Outback Steakhouse restaurant if it were not for their nation's proximity to the US, and their country should be invaded because of the presence of drug cartels there. The US Senator John Neely Kennedy. Okay guys, it's time to commercial break time, so we'll be right back for Best Galaxy Australian breaking news.
Dito na tayo sa JA, kung saan lahat ay okay. Sa JA, lahat dito ay super mura. Lahat mga maganda dito sa JA. Sa JA, napatunayan na ng bayan, wala namang iba. Quality shopping ang aming dala. Mapapa-JA talaga kayo. Ang supermarket namin ay JA.
$6 your way deal for a limited time. It's a royal still. Burger, fries, and chicken fries all your way for a feast on a budget. Head to BK. BK, have it your way.
Have you ever wanted to try a train game that for some reason does not work for you? Do you want to experience an arcade-like game that gives you all you ever wanted? Well, we have a solution for you. Prepare your brakes with Stepford County Railway, the best Roblox train game to ever play on. In this game, you can do whatever you want. Drive trains, go on trains, dispatch trains, guard trains, and even signal trains. You don't have to be a professional. You can pick a train, pick a route, and drive as long as you want. We have lots of trains to choose from, ranging from the train, a bigger train, and the gay train. With all these options, your experience will never end. But wait, there's more. There are more than 80 routes to drive in the game, so you can have hours of discovery.
We're back guys, let's move on from News 10. News 10, an Indigenous man incorrectly identified by the Voice Referendum No campaign as Vincent Lingiari's grandson, says he is not related to the land rights leader and feels humiliated by the way his image has been used. No Voice leader Warren Mundine has stood by his campaign's claims, claiming that Stuart Lingiari had described himself as Vincent's grandson in a cultural kinship sense rather than directly. Indigenous Australians Minister Linda Burney said the incident raised real questions about the credibility of her opponents. News 11, a German court has convicted 5 men over the theft of 18th-century jewels worth more than €113 million from a Dresden museum in 2019, one of the most spectacular heists in the country's modern history. The men were given prison sentences of between 4 years and 4 months and 6 years and 3 months. One defendant was acquitted. News 12, a recent spate of executions in Iran looks set to continue after authorities released videos of 3 protesters confessing to the killing of 3 security officers in the so-called Isfahan House case. The men have already been found guilty of the murder and have no further grounds for appeal. More than 60 people have been executed in Iran since late April, some for drug offenses and many from the region of Balochistan, where the protests have been most intense.
News 13, the crowds gathered peacefully, jostling outside the home of the man they call the savior of Pakistan, hoping for a glimpse. 2 days earlier, these same streets in the city of Lahore had resembled a war zone as tens of thousands of protesters violently took to the streets, ransacking buildings, burning cars, throwing petrol bombs and clashing with police, with several dying from gunshot wounds. On Saturday, however, there was calm. Late the previous night, former Prime Minister Imran Khan had finally returned to his home, following some of the most tumultuous days in the country's recent history.
Okay guys, time to commercial break for part 2.
Dito na tayo sa JA, kung saan lahat ay okay. Sa JA, lahat dito ay super mura. Lahat mga maganda dito sa JA. Sa JA, napatunayan na ng bayan, wala namang iba. Quality shopping ang aming dala. Mapapa-JA talaga kayo. Ang supermarket namin ay JA.
BK $6 your way deal for a limited time. It's a royal still. Burger, fries, and chicken fries all your way for a feast on a budget. Head to BK. BK, have it your way.
Have you ever wanted to try a train game that for some reason does not work for you? Do you want to experience an arcade-like game that gives you all you ever wanted? Well, we have a solution for you. Prepare your brakes with Stepford County Railway, the best Roblox train game to ever play on. In this game, you can do whatever you want. Drive trains, go on trains, dispatch trains, guard trains, and even signal trains. You don't have to be a professional. You can pick a train, pick a route, and drive as long as you want. We have lots of trains to choose from, ranging from the train, a bigger train, and the gay train. With all these options, your experience will never end. But wait, there's more. There are more than 80 routes to drive in the game, so you can have hours of discovering.
That is not good.
We're back again now. Let's move on for Australian news. Australian News 1, Joe Biden will address the Australian Parliament next week, the first US president in nearly 10 years to speak to a joint session of MPs and senators in Canberra. Officials have confirmed that Biden will make the speech on Tuesday the 23rd of May, the day before he attends the Quad Summit in Sydney with the Prime Ministers of Australia, Japan and India. The Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, said he was pleased that Biden had taken up his invitation to address Parliament, an honour also afforded to Barack Obama in 2014.
Australian news too, the cost of Stage 3 income tax cuts has climbed to $313 billion over a decade, with the benefits flowing disproportionately to high-income earners and men, according to new data. New Parliamentary Budget Office costings, conducted for the Greens, has predicted a blowout in the cost of implementation. It has been released as the Albanese government insists it has no plans to revisit the controversial tax cuts. The cost of Stage 3 has risen from $254 billion in October due to lower unemployment, higher incomes and inclusion of an additional year in 2033 to 34. The PBO found that the tax cuts will cost $20.4 billion in their first year, 2024 to 25, rising every year to $42.9 billion in 2033 to 34.
Australian News 3, Victorian students were the only Australian cohort to go backwards in a prestigious international reading exam, after experiencing the longest periods of remote learning in the nation. The 2021 Progress in International Reading Literacy Study, PEARLS, test, released on Tuesday, measured trends in Year 4 students' reading literacy across 57 nations.
Okay guys, thanks for watching Best Galaxy Australian Breaking. We'll see you tomorrow at Wednesday.